Hi, I'm Michael Newcomer with Michael Newcomer Photography, and today I'm going to take you through an edit of one of my photos. Over the years, I've had people ask me how do I get the effects that I get, what programs do I use, what are the steps it takes, and all that. Just real quickly today, I'll just 15-20 minutes maybe, which is normally what it takes for me to produce a really good final product. It takes about 15-20 minutes, maybe a half hour for some good things, but I'll try to keep moving along quickly as not to bore you to death. Um, Photography's been an amazing journey for me. I love to go out and shoot photos, but I love to edit photos even more. So all the camera really will ever give me is raw material, but it's up to me to really turn those photos into something special on the computer. And it takes years of practice, but I learned from YouTube and I learned from a lot of other people that taught me over the years how to do that, and it's time for me to share what I've learned and what works and what doesn't for me. Everybody's different. What I do won't work for the next person and vice versa. So the whole point is to have fun with this. So here we go. When I'm out shooting, I like to go out during the day because evenings for watching TV, eating dinner, and relaxing for me. So most photographers do not like to shoot in the middle of the day because the lighting is just not that great. So to get around that, I like to shoot bracketed photos, which is taking a dark, a regular, and a light photo of the same scene so I can combine them on my computer and get the best of all worlds. And as you can see, this was a 100-degree day in Raleigh during the summer. This is of the Acorn down at the auditorium. And it was right in the middle of the day. Most photographers, and you're not going to see a lot of other real photographers. I'm not a real photographer, but real photographers that go out will not be out during the middle of the day like this. There's nothing in the sky. It's real super contrasty. The shadows are muddy and the highlights are blown out. It's terrible. Even in the underexposed image, there's just not much going on in the sky. It wasn't very interesting and everything. So there's all kinds of ways in post-processing that we can get around these things. So this is Lightroom, where I keep all of my photos. Every photo has keywords in it that will identify that photo. If I'm ever doing a search for them later, I can find them. I've got every photo I've ever taken right over in my catalog, all the way back to 2007. I think I bought my first digital camera, and that's all I got that whole year. But I digress. Back to our photo here. So this is a series I shot in Raleigh. I wanted to do a different look for my photos that day, and I tried the effect on a couple of the first photos and loved what it was doing, so that's what I've been doing for all of them. And so we're going to take these three bracketed photos and we're going to combine them in Aurora HDR to make an HDR image out of it. I'm going to edit with Lightroom adjustments because I've already applied a lens correction to these photos that I want to have preserved. I could open source files, which will give you more latitude on changing things, but that profile will be missing from there. So I'm going to edit those. I've been shooting here with a Canon 5D Mark IV, which creates giant raw images right out of the camera. So it takes the computer a little bit to churn through all that data. And here we have our three images it's going to make it from. I want it to align them based on the features in the image. The computer will automatically line all of these up. I'm also going to remove chromatic aberration. Every lens, especially even a zoom at the wide angle, will create pink or green lines around things, and this helps get rid of that a lot. Ghost reduction would, if there's moving people or trees or cars or something in there that's moving between the frames, this would remove it. But there wasn't anything like that really in these pictures, and the trees are pretty far away, so I'm going to leave that off for this time. And we're going to create HDR. Okay, and here I've got my finished HDR image. And as you can see, because of having those three images combined, I've got detail in all of my shadows, and the highlights are not blown out. So the sky is even better than it was before. But we're going to change this sky out into something completely different. So I'm not going to worry about the sky too much on my future edits. And also, before Luminar 2018 came out, which is another editing program I used to use all these filters in Aurora, which are fantastic. You'll get great results with it. But I just feel there's more filters that I like to use that are in Luminar. So basically, I just use Aurora right now to combine the photos, and that's it. So I'm going to say apply, and it will save this photo conveniently back into Lightroom with my other images. And there it is. So now we're going to take this back into Luminar this time. And that's where I'm going to do all my color, detail, and all of those kind of corrections to this photo. Because as you can see, the HDR is very flat and featureless. So we're going to try to carve an image out of this, if you will. So I've got different workspaces over here I use on every photo: light, color, detail, and noise, usually in that order. And each one of those workspaces has a different set of filters I use. So for the light, which is always my first, I'm going to do some contrast, bring down the highlights, up the shadows, check my whites. You always want to have a white and black point in your photo. In case you end up printing it, it'll go better. And here's clarity. You can kind of see the effect that has, a little clarity. AI filter will even out the lighting in the scene for me a little. Advanced contrast, I'm going to put a little contrast in the highlights and the midtones. And since it was a 100-degree day in Raleigh during the summer, we're going to do some behaves. And then that's it for that layer. Next layer is going to be my color. Ordinarily, I would go crazy here, but I'll try to keep it under control. It's just a little vibrance. We're going to skip radiance this time, although I like what that does. It's like, but not for this one. I'm going to add some red into the shadows, into the midtones. It kind of gives it a little better of an effect there. Color contrast is unpredictable at times, but it brightens up those colors just a little. And then as you can see, my yellow's gotten a little out of control here in the grass and everything, so I'm going to tone that down a little. Just go to my HSL so I can adjust them individually. Take the yellow down, maybe the luminance down a little. And the foliage enhancer, anything that's green, it's going to grab and change. So I'm going to do just a little bit of that. And then that's it for that. Now the fun part is going to be detail. And I like, as you can see, there's a lot of detail in this acorn, and I want to make sure that comes through. I'm not really concerned about detail back here because this is the main subject. So I'm going to take my structure, and you can see what that does. It just amps up everything. But we're going to do it real subtly, and then come down maybe some medium details, and I only want to apply that to the acorn because as you can see it's applied it to the whole image. So I'm going to take my brush tool and just brush it in on the acorn. You can see the rest of the photo went back to normal. And it creates a little layer mask up here showing where the changes where white it shows and black it hides, so it's only what's in the white that is showing through right now. I'm going to do a new layer just so I can get some sharpening, do another detail for the whole image. So zoom in so I can see what it's doing, because sometimes it goes out of control. Okay, so there's off, on. It's pretty good and sharp. One of the things I also notice is when you're ever tweaking colors and all that stuff, it creates these kind of noise up here in the sky areas. And normally I would add another adjustment layer and do noise reduction, but we're going to be replacing the sky, so I'm not going to worry about that too much right now. You can also see there's a halo, kind of an unnatural halo around everything, and that's another byproduct artifact from doing HDR. And replacing the sky will also get rid of that. So I'm happy with where we're at. in Luminar with this right now, so I'm going to hit apply, and again it's going to save it right back into my Lightroom again, right next to the other one. The more layers you have, the longer it takes. And now I'm going to get rid of my Aurora one because I really don't need that photo anymore. And we like to save our disk space. And now it's time to do something about this sky and the halos. So I like to use Photoshop for that just because I'm familiar with the selection tools in it and I've used it for years. There is a learning curve which scares a lot of people off from Photoshop, but it really does have a lot of detail control. I just like it for that. So Apple E on a Mac to edit original, because I'm not going to want to keep that original. You can edit a copy, but I just don't need the original for anything. So here we have our image. I'm going to duplicate this layer, and I'm going to turn this black background layer off because I'm not going to need it. So now I need to select this sky. The selection tool that I find easiest and quickest is the Magic Wand tool. Each of these tools has a little pop-out that'll come up and tell you what it does. But I'm just going to click once in the sky, and then anywhere it's blinking is not selected. Like the solid area is selected, this is not. So I'm going to keep clicking, holding down the shift button so that I can get all of those areas selected. Okay, it's better. There's still some little bits here and there that I need to clean up. So I'm going to get my lasso, shift, and draw, and it'll just add those little blinkies to my selection. Okay, just looking around the image here to make sure I got everything. As you can see though, over here in the trees, it's not getting all of my blue from the sky that's shining through those branches, and that's going to show up when I replace the sky with something else. It'll look really unnatural and fake. And like P.T. Barnum says, you gotta sell the fake, just like the Fiji mermaid. So we're going to do some select and mask. While that's still selected, push that select and mask. And all I'm going to do is just brush in where those trees are. And this is telling the computer to add those blues inside those branches to my selection. This has really made it a lot easier over the years. You used to have to go in there and select all this stuff one at a time, but it's much better now. I love technology. Okay, so I think I've got that. Just to see where we're at, I'm going to hit OK. And it looks pretty good. You can see here it grabbed part of that light, so I'm just going to hold down the Option key. And don't be grabbing my light. Okay, and then delete to clear. And it looks like it may have gotten everything, not quite. Select and mask. You can see over here by that. There it is. I hope I just didn't mess that up, but we'll see. Okay, and clear. Okay, it looks like I've got it. Deselect it, and here I have some skies that were saved in my collection for just these kind of purposes. So these are getting kind of old, and as you can see when I drag this into the other image, the resolution on my old camera was a lot less than the new one, so it doesn't fit. So I'm going to Apple T to transform and stretch, then up this way and to the lowermost point where the sky is shining through. Double click to accept it, drag it underneath the other one, and as you can see, we've got a replaced sky. Much better. So we're going to go ahead and be happy with that because it's what we wanted. I'm going to flatten the image and discard the hidden layer, which is just that background layer. We don't need it. and save it, which will drop it back into Lightroom. And there it is with the sky replaced. Much better. Now we're going to edit this in the standalone version of Luminar. Luminar has a plug-in version for Lightroom, which is just if I right-click and then export it, and there's the plug-in. The standalone version, I'll have to drag the photo into it. It contains a few more features than the plug-in does. So here's my photo, just dragging it in there. I already had one open. Okay, and here's my photo in Luminar. The difference for me is up here. In the standalone version, you have access to these other plugins like Topaz Studio, and in the plugin for Lightroom, you do not have that option. So I'm going to be in the standalone for a few minutes. And I have some presets down at the bottom I've built over the time here doing these photos. One of them is called Bloody Mary and Yellow. It's a fantastic name. So I like to click that, and that gives me a starting point as to where to go with this image. That gets me halfway there, what I'm looking for. I'm really heading for a grunge look to this photo, and that gives me a good start. So as you can see, it's desaturated everything except for like the red and the yellow, and you can adjust these as you want. Like here, I'll put a little more orange in there, like on the acorn, and then you can take out the yellow and put the green instead if you wanted to go that way. But I kind of like the yellow for the grunginess and kind of vintage, antique look kind of a thing. And you know, one of the reasons I replaced this sky is so that I could really lower the luminance on that blue and get a really dramatic look for that sky. As you can see, it's darkening these windows here too, but that's all right. Who's to say they're not tinted, right? So that's good on that. Yeah, it's not really anything. Maybe I like the orange where it is. These other colors, I'm going to bring that blue back just a little to be like a steel blue, like that. Okay, and that's kind of the look I was going for in that. But you can change a million different things. You could go any way you wanted to with it. I'm going to back off this contrast just a little because we're going to do something else that's going to add it back in. So I'm happy with where that's at, and I'm going to save my work as I go in case I screw something up and I have to come back. So in the standalone version, you cannot just Apple S like you normally do on the plugin or apply and save. You have to export, which is fine. I'm going to give this a name. We're going to call this Desaturated. T-U-R-A-T-E-D, right? Desaturated. And 300 dpi in case I ever want to print it or send it to MPix or something like that to have it printed. They want that 300 dpi. And save. And it'll take a minute and go there. Okay, and then we're at this starting point. Now for the really fun stuff. We're going to go into Topaz Studio, which is like my newest favorite plugin, and launch it through there. Topaz Studio is actually free to anyone, a free download, and it comes with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these effects that you get for free that you can use on your photo. There's just an unlimited array of them, and you can see any of these subcategories all contain different set of effects, and they give you all of those for free. The only cost is if there's effect you want to customize, you need to buy that effect, and they vary in price from $14 to $100 or whatever you want to do. I like it because it's a la carte and you don't pay for every month, and it's free to start with. So I'm going to pick one out of my favorites here that I already have kind of selected, and that's A Little Dingy. And we're going to just click it to apply the effect, and as you can see, it is very dingy. So we're going to tweak this a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and do something different on a vignette. So I'm going to trash this one, take it off, and then this color overlay that the preset puts on there is not quite right. So I'm just going to click the color and it'll open up my color wheel. Endless possibilities in there. So I'm going to lighten it a little bit, and I'm going to cool it off a little bit with a little more blue in there. Yeah, and then hit OK. And I really like where this image is going. You can see the original and then what's happened since we put this effect on it. And I'm going to stop at this point on this image and just save for a minute, because if I want to come back to this point, I don't have to start over again. And I kind of export. And this time I'm going to call this one Dingy. Dingy. Or Dingy, depending on how you look at it. Okay, save that. And another thing I've been doing lately, and I've gotten mixed reviews on it. Some people love it, some people hate it, but that's digital frames. It was a whole whopping $14 to get that, and I'll tell you, it's the most fun $14 I've ever had. So I'll just show you what that does. Again, it's in Topaz Studio. It was one of the pay programs. Like I said, it was $14. So I mean, I've never had so much fun with $14 before. But some people love these frames, some people hate it. For this image, I really want to do like a grungy look on it. So I want a grungy frame for it. But it just made me remember, before I do that, I'm going to go into edge exposure. And I'm going to, remember I took the vignette off in that other screen. I want to put it back on a little bit here. Here's that left side, right side, top, bottom. I like this effect because you can control each edge individually of each other. We're on the bottom. Okay, and that put that on there. Now I'm going to do my frame. Sorry, it's out of order. I forgot to do that. I wanted to make sure I got that on there. The more layers you have over here, the longer things take too. So, okay, digital frame. And as you can see, it just drops a frame and a matte right around the picture. Of course, this blue frame's not what I want to use because I want grungy. Must have grungy. I'm going to increase that ratio a little bit. I want it to float, so we're going to put that on there. Diffusion. And then let's go find us a grungy frame. Oh, here's one. It's pretty grungy. Yeah. That one's been in a warehouse for years. How about this one down? I got it different down here. There's a lot of yellow in as a like kind of an accent color in this image, so I want something that'll bring it out a little more. Yeah. Oh, here's one. Yeah, this one. I'll calm it down a little bit there. Yeah, this one's not only been in a warehouse; it's had water damage. Let's see. And let's take the brightness down. Really grungy. Something rusted on it. So that's good for the frames. And let's talk about matte on here. I want a grungy matte. Let's see. There's not really any yellow grungies I've been looking through here, but there's a blue one. And I can just invert the texture because apparently yellow is the opposite of blue. According to probably that's a real thing. And just up the detail, contrast. Let me lighten up a little bit more. Okay. And there you have is a perfectly framed photo. You just push OK. It'll add it as a new layer in Luminar. And you're free to do anything from that point. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this little tutorial, I guess you'd call it. But there's just a world of possibilities. I love to go out shooting with my camera, but like I say, all it gives me is raw material. Sometimes you'll have a real dud in your camera and think, well, this is a piece of crap photo. Don't delete it. because you can always make something out of it, possibly in your photo editing program. Usually, I can make something out of anything, but sometimes you really do take some real turds, so they just got to get deleted. I love the world of digital. Anyway, if you know me and you have any questions, just ask me. If you don't and you want to ask a question, just put it in the comments section. And again, thank you for watching.